Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Global Coalition Initiative to End the Colonial Conflict in the Cameroons, I wish to welcome the members of the print and mass media. I wish to also welcome leaders of the church, civil society organizations, human rights institutions that have made it here. I wish to also acknowledge the effort that has been made by some speakers that have decided to put away all odds and make it here. So, as we are carrying out this press conference, we should remember that on the 7th of February, we launched a global initiative. This global initiative was aimed at putting an end to the violent conflict that is currently taking place in Cameroon, specifically in the southern Cameroons, otherwise known as Ambazonia. So the 7th of February 2019 was just the launching of that initiative. And it was done in togetherness with our partners all over the world, especially in Geneva. And we've taken the second step to make sure that we move forward from launching the initiative. In this press conference, we'll try to bring to your attention what has happened since we launched this global initiative to end this conflict, and what we need to do more in order to make sure that our mandate of sending an independent, impartial, fact-finding mission to the Cameroons, specifically in Ambazonia, is being implemented. Johan, who is the representative, the director of Dennis Howley Peace Institute, which is an organization owned by the Southern African bishops. And I also want to use this opportunity to also thank our partners, global partners, especially in New York, that are also carrying out this initiative today. And in the New York team, we have Eben Egbe, who is also a serious advocate and activist for human rights and is part of the organization known as the Ambazonian Prisoners of Conscience. And we have Meg Starr, who is the founding member of the Resistance in Brooklyn. So she is an international, recognized and acknowledged activist that have fought a lot for humanity. And we also have Shirley Febre, which she is an international fellowship of reconciliation representative. She's a representative with the International Fellowship of Reconciliation to the United Nations, and a member of Muslim Peace Fellowship. And we have Baba Sekou, who is the former U.S. political prisoner, founding member of the Black Partner Parties International. So we have, in the New York, we have a serious team, and we have Eben Ajani Okpu Egbe. Ajani Okpu Egbe is an Ambazonian diaspora activist, and of course, an artist who is giving a clear presentation of what is actually happening in Ambazonia, the carnage, the cruelty that is happening there, using his artistic skills. So I will now move forward to what we have done and the situation that we have now on the ground. We've done a lot of things since our petition that was submitted. There are 13 things that I need to highlight before moving towards to our results, what we have achieved so far. So before moving to what we have achieved so far, the situation is still serious on the ground. There is humanitarian carnage taking place, irrespective of some of the initiatives that have been taken by the European Union, UK, and 38 other countries, and of course the United Nations Human Rights Commission. I will highlight on that later, but I just want to call your attention that despite these talks and despite these bold steps are simply a token. So as global initiative to end the Cameroon's colonial conflict, we want to make the world to understand that we see what we can hear and we observe seriously efforts that have been made by the United Nations Human Rights Commission, efforts that have been made by the European Union and Parliament, efforts that have been made by Britain, but these are just tokens that we don't need to derail and show more commitment to our project to actually end this conflict. There are a lot of information that has been published. I will try to highlight on the work that OCHA has done, which is an organ of the United Nations Security Council or an organ of the United Nations Human Rights. It actually warned that the conflict in Ambazonia is a serious human security problem. And statistics have shown that from March to December in 2018, the number of internally displaced persons in southern Cameroon and refugees, of course, that are moving to Nigeria, increased from 190,000 to 470,000. That is a staggering statistic. And she said that Mrs. Rena Jelani, who is the representative of OCHA, said that this crisis, in quote, is one of the fastest growing displacement crises in Africa. So that shows you how serious things are getting worse, or the dire need for intervention. And again, OCHA recent account issued on April 15, 2019, puts the number of affected people in this territory, that is internally displaced, up to 4 million people are being affected as internally displaced. These 4 million people that are internally displaced do not include refugees. We also have other statistics that have been on board. We don't need to dwell much on that, especially on April 22nd, BBC interview Father Humphrey Tata Boy, and he highlighted the way dioceses are being destroyed and the carnage that is going on there, and more than 19 out of 36 parishes in the Northwest province, especially in the Kumbo diocese, have been seriously affected. Many people have been killed, and so that is a report that was presented on BBC by Father Humphrey Tata Boy. Besides that, we also have some malicious damage on civilians, and so many people have been killed by the military crackdown in southern Cameroon, otherwise known as Ambazonia. Houses have been burned down. We have statistics of more than 400 villages that have been destroyed. And if you look at that, a village has an approximate population of maybe 5,000 people, then you can calculate that and know how many people have gone destitute because of these heinous crimes committed by the military. And as the Prisoners of Conscience Network that is led by people like activists like Ebe, we have highlighted that besides our leaders, Sisiku Ayoktabe and Tassan Wilfred, Mancho BBC, and other prisoners of conscience that have been in jail, the most frightening and disheartening thing that has been done by the regime of President Paul Biya is the arrest of Caleb. This is the youngest prisoner. So Caleb was actually arrested while in Nigeria. He ran away with the mother to Nigeria and the father. So the parents were arrested, and Caleb also was arrested with the parents. And that was when Caleb was about 8 months old, just 8 months old. And he went through all the torments and torture, just like the parents. And imagine how an 8-month-old child would live in underground tunnels, bunkers, experiencing what is happening to the mother. And when the mother recounted the audio, what else do you want to equate to a high degree of inhumanity, arresting a minor just because of what you tag the parents to be? The minor too has to undergo that kind of torture. It is not actually different from the military arresting people that they suspected to be Boko Haram in the north and carrying out summary execution on those suspected Boko Haram or terrorists that they tagged in the north. And the world stood up and condemned. Amnesty International and other global organizations ran this report on many media outlets. So Caleb's case is extraordinary. 8 months old, arrested in Nigeria with his parents, transferred to Cameroon under inhumane conditions, and still staying in those conditions. Even though he has been released, Caleb stayed there for close to a year, and he has been released with the mother, but he has serious health consequences. He has lost his sight, he's undergoing, he needs surgery because he has lost his sight. And we're using Caleb as the kind of crime that the regime of President Paul Biya is committing against humanity, especially against the most vulnerable people that you can talk of in the world, women and children. A lot of women are in jail. Caleb's mother is a symbol of women that have gone through these serious violations of rights. There are people like Mama Apia was burned in her house while sleeping. She died in her sleep. That itself tells you the level of torture, the level of inhumanity that women in Ambazonia are going through. And if the world can stay aloof, if the world wants to ignore the genocide that is going down on there, but the world cannot ignore that they need to defend women, especially very young minors like Caleb. So what have we done up to this time? So that's why we've taken the position that no matter what the United Nations Human Rights Commission has done after the Human Rights Commission 40th session that just ended in Geneva. You should remember that we launched our initiative on the 7th of February, and towards the end of that month, up to March, the United Nations Human Rights Commission 40th session took place in Geneva, and Human Rights Council 40th session took place in Geneva, where we submitted our petition that has been signed by so many human rights organizations like International Fellowship for Reconciliation. We also have church groups like the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America, church group like the Dennis Howley Peace Institute, which is owned by the Southern African bishops, and also NGOs and civil society group, of which the Sam Sawyer Center for Democracy and Human Rights is a strategic partner and part of this global coalition. So besides the few that I have just mentioned, there are a lot. We should remember that more than 18 civil society groups or more signed this petition and submitted during the 40th session, requesting the United Nations Human Rights Commission to send a fact-finding mission to investigate the atrocities that are happening and bring perpetrators to book, and most importantly, put a stop to the violence that is taking place in the Cameroons, particularly in Ambazonia. So it is through these petitions that we launched, it is through this talking and those petitions that we've seen some successes that we have made. There is a lot of anecdotal successes that I will mention. After that petition was launched and submitted at the 40th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council that just took place in Geneva, the United Nations accepted to offer a UN High Commissioner for Human Rights to conduct a fact-finding mission, an assessment mission, conflict assessment, to assess the situation on the ground. So that is a success story, but we still emphasize as a global initiative, a coalition, that is not our core objective. That falls short of our objectives or our purpose of launching this initiative. Our purpose is to stop violence, is to investigate atrocities. And we can also highlight that despite the United Nations Human Rights High Commission accepting to send an assessment mission to Amazonia, to Cameroon, to the Cameroons, especially in the English-speaking part, which is the southern Cameroons, otherwise known as Amazonians. Other organizations, other institutions or governments have come on board. We've also seen how the United Kingdom, led a coalition of 38 other countries to highlight on the issues that are happening in southern Cameroons, to condemn and to also emphasize for the need for an assessment on the ground. They've also highlighted the continuous detention of activists and human rights defenders or people that are fighting for the right to self-determination, which is an internationally recognized right, which is seriously written in the United Nations Fundamental Rights of People. The other thing that we need to understand is the fight for the freedom and dignity of the people of southern Cameroon is a basic fight for survival. People need their basic needs, and humanity needs to survive, and that is a human rights issue. And these people have expressed their demand through a non-violent approach, and the government of Cameroon reacted through a systematic ethnic cleansing, from destruction of property to human beings, mass graves all over, and you can name the rest that I've previously highlighted. So the United Kingdom and 38 other countries have mentioned this in their assessment and their statements. Hence, this is not enough, as we have mentioned, as a coalition, a group of peace lovers, church representative, human rights leaders that form this coalition to end the Cameroon's conflict, the colonial conflict in the Cameroons. You have highlighted that this is not enough. And since it is not enough, we want to do more. We are not working against the plan, the United Nations Human Rights Commission. Their assessment team makes sense, but it is not enough. We want to add more on that. And as a coalition, the way forward is that this coalition will send a civil society and peace movement fact-finding mission to the affected region, the affected area, that is the southern Cameroons, otherwise known as Amazonia, so as to investigate, because based on what I've highlighted, the carnage, the continuous killings, the arbitrary abduction and detentions that are still taking place, and the staggering statistics that has been presented by OCHA and the BBC, and of course, church leaders in that affected region, like the representative of the Catholic Church. So that is exactly what we need to do. So detail of this plan of sending a civil society and peace movement fact-finding mission to the southern Cameroons, to the affected area, the conflict area. First, to stop violence, and secondly, to carry out serious investigation of the atrocities that are going on, will add more value to what the United Nations Human Rights Commission is planning to do. So that is an added value that we want to, as a coalition, we want to bring on board. So hence, the need for this press conference to tell you what we have done from the 7th of February that we launched this coalition up to today, after the 40th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council. We are already having contacts. There are a lot of representatives on board, from the political sphere to the church, from bishops to parliamentarians to church leaders, other representatives of human rights have opted. Even former head of states also have opted to be part of this. And it is not my place to announce this fully, but we are expecting that the detail will be made in the New York conference. And that is also taking place simultaneously. And there is an information pack that we will be distributing, or a kit that we will be distributing to you all, and we'll also send some electronically. The content of the kit, the first item there, you will see a press release that came out on April 16, 2019, talking about this press conference and peace leaders affirming the progress that we have made, but one that is just what the United Nations Human Rights Commission has taken is just a token. So we shouldn't be deterred. We shouldn't bring in any complacency. We should stay on focus and make some added value. The second aspect of that content, there is a press release that we had from February 7, talking about the launching, the press that we had, that we launched the initiative. So leaders demanded that the United Nations Human Rights Council mandate a fact-finding mission to English-speaking Cameroons. That Human Rights Council, which was the 40th session, ended, and they ended up with talking about a team to go on the ground and carry out an assessment of the conflict. There is a petition to, the third aspect that you will notice, that we carry out a petition to permanent representatives of members and observer states of the United Nations Human Rights Council in February 7, 2019. So after our launching, we decided to submit a petition to these member states. A resolution was submitted to the United Nations Human Rights Council 40th session by the United Kingdom and 37 other member states on the 21st of March 2019. So these are some of the progress that were made based on the pressure that we are putting on important stakeholders like the UN and members of the United Nations Security Council and countries in Europe and Africa. There is a report of the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights defenders submitted to the United Nations Human Rights Commission 40th session on the 25th of February 2019 from page 7 to 10. So that is what you will also see. And the sixth item that you will see is a judgment from the Federal High Court of Nigeria, Abuja Division, on the 1st of March 2019. And you all know about that judgment, asking the Nigerian government to actually the adoption of Sisiku Ayoktabe and the rest of the Naira 10 and 49 refugees from the Taraba state in Nigeria violates international human rights conventions, and therefore the rights of the individual that were supposed to be protected, because most of these people were refugees and are still refugees, even though in detention, and they were supposed to be protected by the Nigerian government and the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. So the Nigerian government requested, the Nigerian High Court requested the Nigerian government, the Buhari regime, to request the Cameroon government to send back these adopted leaders and refugees to Nigeria so that they will be free, and also find the Nigerian government and the Cameroon government So the next thing you will see, the seventh item, is about Ambazonian Freedom Protocol, which was written on the 28th of February, the submission of that protocol on the 28th of February 2019. You will see what some of the leaders in jail have talked about, their positions and other things about the Ambazonian Charter or the protocol. The eighth item is the statement by the mother of baby Khaled. So that is a serious crime against minor, and that the world needs to understand and know and understand that the Southern Cameroon's problem is another new Rwanda that we cannot ignore. And the 10th item there is OCHA Cameroon Situation Report. And that report was, we have that report dated on the 22nd of April 2019. And the 9th, there is other issues that you will see there that is part of the package, which is prisoners who have died in jail. So some of the prisoners have died in jail that the regime cannot say it, but we have concrete evidence. So you also have this information. And the BBC interview or report based on the interview with Father Humphrey Tata that I mentioned in my introductory statement. You will also have this information. The proof of premeditated burning of villages from on the 4th of April 2019. We say these are premeditated because there is ample evidence that these crimes are well organized. We had prior information prior to the attack and burning of villages that there is a systematic plan to burn villages within a particular location, and those report or those issues that came up prior to the action, those actions actually took place. Those villages were burned. So these are premeditated actions that were carried out by the military. We also have the 13th aspect is the European Parliament resolution on Cameroon. This has not come from space. It's because of serious work on the ground by the coalition, especially one of the member of the coalition, Red Hack, that has also done a tremendous job to make sure we work as a team and push forward some of this resolution, talking to parliamentarians, lobbying with them in Europe. You also look at on the 14th aspect of the content, there is background articles. So you look at those articles, you have web links there that you can just click and you get a lot of information on what is happening. So I've briefed the House on what we've done so far, why we are here today, what we need to do more. And that's essentially what this press conference is what about. So I just want to thank everybody so much for coming here, for making use of our time, especially members of the press, especially civil society groups, especially community members. I want to, in fact, acknowledge the gesture and the commitment that the Catholic Church in South Africa has made to work with us in solidarity under the Denise Howley Peace Institute. We are overwhelmed. We so imagine we're not alone. Humanity is always first, and the Church as an agent of change has always shown this when it comes to protecting humanity and the rights of people. So we are very happy that we want to thank all our partners, civil society groups that are on board with this global initiative for the commitment that they have made to make sure that things must come to normalcy, the rights of sovereignty, the rights to protest, the right for basic survival of these vulnerable people in this part of the world, especially the people of Ambazonia, will be realized in grand style. We want to thank the Southern Cameroon's community that is here too, that has made it to come. We want to thank their groups that have come, the women groups, that have made sure things happen in this manner, in a way that it will put a smile to young people, kids that has gone through a lot, like Caleb and the mother, and other women that are in the bushes using the bark of trees as sanitary pads. Those that have died because they stood for their basic rights, they will have this consolation seeing us standing for them because we stand for humanity. So I also want to thank the panel that has been here to talk about these things. I think it might not be good enough to just leave without at least having one or two questions from the audience. So I will beg your indulgence that I give you space for one or two questions, then we can just talk and we call it a day. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening.